Good afternoon. Today we are going to talk. Today we are going to discuss about the second aspect of the breast topic. We are going to discuss about the breast carcinomas. We know that the carcinoma of the breast is the most common cancers worldwide, and it's the second leading cause of cancer death, especially in the Western countries. If you go for the risk factors, or also called as the prognostic factors, there are a number of entities we have to keep in mind that they all can be contributing to the formation of the carcinoma. First entity is the germline mutations. The most common germline mutations are the BRCA1 mutations, or with the familiar BRCA2 mutations, or STK mutations, ATM mutations, P53 mutations. They all contribute to the formation of breast carcinomas. Among these germline mutations account about 5 to 10% of the normal cases. The rest of them are the sporadic causes for breast carcinomas. The second entity, that is the first degree relatives, like if a mother or the sister or the twin sister, if she had a history of breast carcinoma, there is a high risk for formation of the lady of having this carcinomas. Next is the race and ethnicity. It has been found that non-Hispanic women, like the non-Hispanic or those who are the African American race, they have a high propensity for formation of this type of breast carcinomas. Secondly, Azikansky zoos also have a high risk factor for formation of this type of cancers. Age, usually breast carcinomas are not very common in a younger age group. So usually women above 70 years have a high risk factor for formation of this breast carcinomas. Next point is the menarche and menopause. We know menarche and menarche, that is the formation of the cycles. It is mostly dependent on the hormonal status, mostly the estrogen and the progesterone. So early menarche is again a risk factor, like precocious puberty. And again a menopause, that is after 50 years, again adds to the high risk factor for formation of breast cancers. Age of first live birth, if you go for this point, then a woman who delivers in the early 20s or before 20 years have no risk factors. The risk of breast carcinoma is less in compared to those ladies who deliver after the age of 35. Next point is the benign breast disease. Women having benign breast disease like a fibrocystic disease account for 1% of the breast carcinomas. If the lady has a atypical hyperplasia of the lobular atypical hyperplasia or a ductal hyperplasia, have high risk factors for formation of breast carcinoma in future. Next, estrogen exposures, like women on a hormone replacement therapy, or oral contraceptive pills, they have increased risk for breast carcinoma formation. The breast density, if a woman is having a very dense breast, then there is high chances that they can land up into a breast carcinoma formation. Radiation exposure, like if a lady has been on a radiotherapy, for example, if she had undergone radiotherapy for Hodgkin's lymphoma and in her early 20s, there can be a additional risk for breast carcinoma. Like next, other radiations like you have Chernobyl radiations, atomic bomb radiations. They all can cause again high risk for breast formation. Carcinoma of the contralateral breast, the carcinoma of the endometrium, again it leads to the formation of breast carcinomas. Diet, next point. Diet again is a very high risk factor, like high fat diet. Next, then a lot of carbonated drinks can add up to breast carcinomas. obesity. Obesity is in the younger age does not has anything to do with breast cancer, because too much of obesity in younger age, it can lead to anovulatory cycle, and anovulatory cycles there will be no estrogen effect. So no. But the same thing when it's in the obese lady for the elderly age, the fat cells itself, they release estrogens, and estrogens contribute to again formation of breast carcinoma. Exercise, sedentary lifestyle has a high risk factor for breast carcinoma. Breastfeeding is a boon to breast carcinoma. Is a boon. Breast carcinoma is a boon. Breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is very good because it leads to anovulatory cycles, and itself is a boon. And environmental toxins like organophosphate or smoking itself causes high risk factors. And pregnancy has nothing to do with breast carcinoma, but pregnancy, if a lady having a breast carcinoma associated with pregnancy, then it leads to aggressive breast carcinoma formation. Next, what are the symptoms of breast carcinomas? If we go through this, you can see a nipple discharge. You're seeing here nipple discharge, a bloody discharge from the nipple. If somebody is having, then it's a triggering point that the lady might have a breast carcinoma undergoing. Next, this is the typical pude orange formation change in the breast. You can see this is retraction of the nipples. Next, here what you see here is a mass. It's a mass over the nipple areolar complex, lateral side of the nipple areolar complex. You can see there's a palpable mass. Again, there's a palpable mass here. So these are all the symptoms of breast carcinomas. So let us go for the etiology and pathogenesis. Breast carcinoma can be sporadic or it can be the familial type. Familial breast carcinomas we'll discuss in brief. The mostly associated with mutations like the BRCA1 mutation, BRCA2 mutations, then STK mutation, ATM mutations. So BRCA1, it's the most common. It is on the chromosome 17q21 and associated with purely differentiated tumors having medullary features. These tumors are biologically similar to the estrogen receptor negative and HER2 negative breast carcinomas. It is a tumor suppressor gene and also has a role in the transcription regulator and in the DNA repair. Other associated tumors of this beside the breast it can contribute to prostate carcinomas, colonic carcinomas, pancreatic carcinomas. Pancreatic carcinoma and fallopian tube tumors. Next, we discuss the BRCA2 mutations. It is on the chromosome 13q1213. These are associated with poorly differentiated tumors and are often ER positive. Accounts 30 to 90% risk for the carcinomas. And these tumors are also, beside breast, they can be associated with ovarian tumors, male breast tumors, prostate tumors, pancreatic tumors, tumors of the stomach, melanoma formations, and gallbladder tumors, bile duct tumors, and pharynx. Check 2, located on the chromosome Q12-1, accounts 10 to 20% of the cancer risk. Other associated cancers are the prostate tumors, kidney, colon, and thyroid. Functions as a cell cycle checkpoint kinase, DNA repair. Also activates the BRCA1 and P53 by phosphorylation. Next tumor gene is the TP53, located on the 17p13.1, also called the Lee-Fraumeni syndrome. It accounts more than 90% of the cancers. Other associated cancers associated with TP53 are sarcoma, leukemia, brain tumors, adenocortical tumors. Functions are DNA replication and repair in the apoptosis. Other tumor suppressor genes are the P10, that is Cowden syndrome, STK11, that is Peutz-Jeghers syndrome, ATM, that is ataxic telangiectasia. These are all mutated in less than 1% of all familial breast carcinomas. So this is the figure which shows so breast carcinomas without any genetic mutation, that is the sporadic cases, accounts 90% of the cases. Sporadic cases are 90%. Only the 10% of the cases are associated with gene mutations. Either it can be widely, can be usually a BRCA1 or BRCA1, and the other types can be with CHEK2 mutations, P10 mutations, ATM mutations, P53, and others. If you go for the molecular subtypes of the breast carcinomas, all breast carcinomas here, they are either hormone receptor positive or can be HER2 positive or triple negative, that is ER negative, PR negative, and HER2 mu negative. So these are all the molecular subtypes are divided into either hormone receptor positive, that is ER positive, PR positive, or only HER2 positive or HER2 enriched type of tumors, or the triple negative tumors. Now we briefly HER2 positive, that is HER2 positive, ER positive, and HER2 negative breast carcinomas. They usually occur with the germline mutations. They usually occur with the germline mutations or BRCA2 mutations. So normal breast, so there is either 1q gain or a 16q loss. It will lead to the flat epithelial atypia with mutation of the phosphokinase 3CA. It will lead to atypical ductal hyperplasia, or it will lead to ductal carcinoma in situ, and eventually it will form the invasive carcinoma. Next point is the HER2 positive breast carcinomas. They are very aggressive tumors. They are associated with germline TP53 mutations. So the normal breast, you have the HER2 mutations, it will lead to atypical adenosis. Atypical adenosis will eventually lead to the formation of the ductal carcinoma in situ, and that will cause again an invasive, full-blown invasive carcinoma. Third entity is the ER negative, HER2 negative breast carcinoma, mostly associated with BRCA2 mutations. So it will lead to again this type of invasive carcinoma. So this is the normal breast. So you have the germline BRCA mutations and or a germline TP mutation or germline BRCA1 mutation. So when you have a BRCA1 mutation with associated with TP53, it will lead to basal type of carcinoma, that is ER negative, that is triple negative, ER negative, PR negative, HER2 negative tumors. They are called basal type of tumors. When you have BRCA1, BRCA2 mutations along with 1q gain and 16q loss, it will lead to ER positive, HER2 negative. That is called luminal type of tumors. Luminal type of tumors. And third is the ER positive pathway, where you have the H2 positive, HER2 positive tumors. That's the HER2 positive or HER2 enriched tumors. Again, the luminal type, that is BRCA2 associated. So if they are again divided into type A luminal tumors and type B luminal tumors. Luminal type A, they are ER positive or PR positive, that is estrogen positive or progesterone positive, and HER2 mu negative. They are the most common subtypes. They are hormone responsive and they have a very good prognosis. But the luminal type, they are either ER positive and PR positive, and they are HER2 positive also. Their outcome is worse compared to the luminal type A. If you go for the H2 positive, HER2 positive, that is HER2 enriched tumors, they are less common. They are aggressive subtypes, high-grade histology, and the outcome. But the outcome is, and the most commonly they are treated with Herceptin. And there are the tumors. These type of tumors mostly occur in the young age. And the basal-like tumors, they are triple negative tumors. They are aggressive in nature, high-grade histology. They are more common in the younger age, more common African American women. Constitute 20% of the breast cancers. A propensity to metastasis is very high. Carcinoma in situ. It is a condition, it's a malignant clonal proliferation of the epithelial cells limited to the ducts or limited to the lobules, which is enclosed within the basement membrane. Here the myoepithelial cells are preserved, involved within the ducts and the lobules. So what are the types of breast carcinoma in situ? They can be, if it occurs in the lobe, it is a lobular carcinoma in situ. If it occurs within the ducts, it is called a ductal carcinoma in situ. Ductal carcinoma in situ is rarely a palpable lesion, which is mostly detected by mammography. It spreads through the ductal system and produces extensive lesions in the breast. It is divided into two major types, that is comedo and non-comedo type. Other types can be papillary, can be micropapillary, can be solid the ductal carcinoma in situ, can be comedo form, can be cribriform type of ductal carcinoma in situ. So this is a comedo type of ductal carcinoma in situ, where you can see there is malignant pleomorphic, highly malignant pleomorphic cells within the ductal system. It is not outside, it is within the duct, these cells. These cells have a high NC ratio and have subnuclear cytoplasm also. And you can see there is necrosis here. So this is comedo. You can see central necrosis and then pleomorphic high-grade cells surrounding. So here again, you can see the pleomorphic cells. You can see each of the cells is different from others. Highly pleomorphic, high NC ratio. You can see dense chromatin. Okay, dense clumped chromatin. You can see here, and you can see central necrosis. You can see central. If you see necrosis, it is called as comedo ductal carcinoma in situ. If there is no necrosis, it's non-comedo type of ductal carcinoma in situ. Next, we have the solid DCIS. It's a solid. You don't see anything. The ductal cells are involving the entire duct. You can see the pleomorphic cells entirely within the duct, but it is not outside. Next is cribriform type of ductal carcinoma, cookie cutter, it's like cookie cutter. Then micropapillary, you can see the micropapillae and the papillary also, large papillae. If you see, it's a papillary type of ductal carcinoma in situ. Next entity which we are going to discuss is the Paget's disease. The patient present with Paget disease are usually present with eczematous lesions with the crusted, eroded surface over the nipple and areola. It seems like they are having some eczema, okay, or dermatitis of the nipple. The malignant cells which we see here are known as Paget cells. They mostly are seen in the elderly women, and the tumor is a poorly circumscribed tumor. It is just within the nipple, and usually they complain of the nipple, bloody discharge from the nipple. It is associated with the underlying invasive carcinoma or a DCIS. So this is how it looks. You can see the nipple. You can nipple areola complex. This is the nipple areola complex. This much. And here you can see erythema of the underlying tissue. You can see the erythema, and you can see crusting. You can see crusting of the skin. And it looks like crusting, and it looks like as though it is an eczema has occurred, crackling eczema which has occurred here. A Paget's disease, the malignant cells, the Paget cells, extend from the DCIS within the ductal system via the lactiferous sinuses into the nipple skin without crossing the basement membrane. The tumor cell disrupts the normal epithelial barrier, allowing the extracellular fluid to sweep into the nipple surface. So you can see here, this is the basement membrane. This is the basement membrane, that is DCIS. Now the Paget cells which are here, they have crawled, and the basement membrane is continuous. This is the continuous basement membrane. It has not ruptured the basement membrane, but the cells have entered the epithelial section, the epithelial part of the surface epithelium of the skin, of the nipple. So that's why you see that reaction, out of which The reaction has occurred. This eczema and everything, the inflammation, everything has occurred here. Microscopically also you can see this is the basement membrane, and you can see the padded cells here. They're highly pleomorphic. You can see subvacuolar, subcytoplasmic vacuolations you can see here, and disruption of the cells. These are all the padded cells which you see here. Broadly, how to classify histological classification of the breast cancers. So we divide the breast cancer into either carcinoma in situ or the invasive carcinoma. If you go for the carcinoma in situ, they can be either, if it's from the duct, it's a ductal carcinoma in situ. If it is from the lobular, it is a lobular carcinoma in situ. The ductal carcinoma in situ can again be comedotype, it can be cubriform pattern, they can have a papillary pattern, they can have a micropapillary pattern, they can have a solid pattern. If you go for the lobular type, they are mostly low histological barrier type. The invasive carcinomas, the most common is the infiltrated duct cell carcinomas. The infiltrated duct cell carcinomas, they can be again be divided into, as per the score and per grade, will be divided into well differentiated, moderately differentiated, highly differentiated, poorly differentiated tumors. This category is basically on the Nottingham's Robertson scale we do, so which is basically mostly based on the nuclear pleomorphism, on the glandular or the tubule formations, and on the mitotic rate. Next, other entities other than from the duct cell, they are the tubular carcinomas, ductal or the lobular carcinomas, invasive lobular carcinomas, mucinous or colloid carcinomas, you have medullary carcinoma, you have infiltrating ductal carcinoma, you have secretory carcinomas, you have apocrine carcinomas. The invasive duct cell carcinoma. Invasive duct cell carcinoma, also known as the invasive duct cell breast cancers, is the most common type of breast tumors. Invasive breast carcinomas, they are also called as no special type or NST, or can be also be said as otherwise not specific, NOS type. This is because the cancer cells have no features that can be classed them as a specific type of breast cancers when examined under the microscope. Mostly the breast carcinoma, they have the symptoms, they come with lump or thickening of the breast tissue, a change of skin texture such as puckering or dimpling of the skin, a lump or swelling under the arm, changes in the nipple, as in nipple retraction or puckering occurs, discharge from the nipple, or change in the color and the shape of the breast, and there can be a constant pain in the breast or in the armpits. This is the invasive duct cell carcinoma. You can see this is the tumor component, which is very poorly, which shows crab-like projections, and you can see retraction of because of the fibrosis, the area is a nipple areolar area which is causing retraction. The area is retracted here, and some crab-like projections you can see here. Okay. Again, this is another tumor of the duct cell, and you can see a tumor component. It's a poorly circumscribed tumor, okay, with irregular borders. Sometimes the tumor might be very hard in cutting also. It's firm, it's hard, it is grayish white, and some areas are hemorrhage, you can see here. This is again a very poor tumor, poorly demarcated tumor, and you can see the tumor, it is actually involving the skin also. This is it probably is a nipple areolar space, and it is touching the nipple areolar. This is what is very important. We have to know the margins. Okay. Another tumor, you can see this tumor is a poorly demarcated tumor. Okay, and you can see this grayish white and involving like crab-like projections, you can see, and you can see there's a very little space. This margin is very important for us, because we have to know we have to give the margins, which is very important for the further staging of the disease. It's a highly It looks very highly aggressive tumor. You can see solid, very hard, and it has some areas of increased areas of hemorrhages. Sometimes necrosis can also be there. This invasive duct cell carcinoma slide. You can see these are the tumor cells, malignant tumor cells, pleomorphic cells. They are either arranged in sheets. They are arranged in sheets in individual nests. You can see these cells, and these cells are highly pleomorphic. They have a high NC ratio. There is a subnuclear vacuolations. You can see increased number of mitotic figures. It is an atypical mitosis. And you can see the stroma, the next stroma, it is undergoing desmoplasia. It is undergoing desmoplasia, desmoplastic stroma. This is again the tumor cells. They are arranged in sheets and nests. Okay, and what you see is a vessel. You can see, and some maybe it is a angiolymphatic invasion is also there. You can see that these are the tumor components. This is a vessel. You can see the endothelial layer, and you can see the tumor cells within. It's under embolism is there, and what you see the stroma. The stroma is a desmoplastic stroma. Again, these are the tumor cells. You can see the highly pleomorphic cells with high nuclear pleomorphism, with clumped chromatin, with subnuclear vacuolations. Okay, so prominent nucleoli you can see here is a prominent nucleoli, and they are arranged in individual nests. This is again, this is a ductal carcinoma. This is a comedonecrosis, which are tumor cells. These are all the tumor cells you can see in sheets, and you can see central necrosis. This is comedonecrosis. Same comedonecrosis you see, and you can see it surrounded by pleomorphic cells. You can see the pleomorphic cells here, high grade pleomorphic cells. Next entity which we are going to talk is the mucinous or the colloid carcinomas. They account 1 to 4% of the cases associated with BRCA1 mutations. They are uncommon, slow-growing neoplasms seen in elderly women as well as a well-circumscribed mass. It's a well-circumscribed mass. You can see involving the whole of the skin. Actually, you can from the skin itself you can see the tumor here. It's a very postulated tumor. You can see on the cut section you can see mucin, areas of mucin and some cyst formations. You can see huge tumor. It's a very large tumor, and you can see gelatinous mucin within it. And under microscope you can see the sheets of cells, sheets and nests of cells, individual nests. Okay, and you can see the desmoplastic stroma. These cells have a high NC ratio, high nuclear pleomorphism. You can see and what you see is in within, and these are the mucin. These are the mucin pools. You can see this is one mucin pool. This is another mucin pools. They are some mucinous carcinoma. This is again the mucinous carcinoma. You can see the tumor cells in within floating in the mucin pools. They are actually floating, and the stroma is desmoplastic embedded with tumor cells. Next is invasive lobular carcinoma. It's a palpable mass on mammography which shows irregular borders. Sometimes the tumor infiltrates the tissue diffusely. Little dysplasia is seen. It can occur bilaterally in 5 to 10% of cases. This is the invasive lobular carcinoma. They are all arranged in lobes, individual lobes, highly pleomorphic cells. You can see of different shapes and sizes. And this is a typical lobular carcinoma pattern, that is the Indian file pattern. You see Indian file, just back-to-back arrangement. They are in line. The tumor cells arranged in line, Indian file pattern. Next is the metaplastic breast carcinoma. This tumor shows differentiation towards malignant squamous epithelium, cartilaginous. It can be either cartilaginous or bony. Also called a carcinosarcoma. It is a basal-like subtype and has a high proliferative rate with positive lymph nodes. A recurrence rate is high, associated with TP52 mutation and Ki67 index expressed in less than 40% of the cases. So you can see here, this is a squamous type of epithelium here, squamous metaplasia is there within the tumors, and here you see bony metaplasia. And what you see is like, it looks like an adenocarcinoma. It looks like there's a glandular formation here, what you see here, gland-like formation. So it's an adenocarcinoma along with, and this one is a chondroid. You can see chondroid differentiation. You can see that's why it's called metaplastic type of carcinomas. Next comes a papillary breast carcinoma. They are seen in 1 to 2% of the cases. Approximately 50% of the tumors located beneath the nipple and is associated with bloody nipple discharge. Grossly, the tumors are well circumscribed and may contain cystic lesions with brown mixture of blood clot and neoplastic tissue. So what we see is this one. So you can see the papillary projections. You can see the increased papillary pleomorphic cells with adhesion papillary projections. These are the, you can see the pleomorphic cells having clumped, not a clumped, but this is a dispersed chromatin. Okay, this is a dispersed chromatin, open chromatin. Okay, highly pleomorphic cells with high NC ratio. And in between you can see papillary formations. Other type of carcinomas are the apocrine breast carcinoma, secretory breast carcinoma, cribriform breast carcinomas, angiosarcomas, micropapillary breast carcinoma, and medullary breast carcinomas. So this is a cribriform breast carcinoma. You can see the cribriform pattern. You can see the cribriform pattern here. Everywhere cribriform pattern you can see here. This is apocrine breast carcinoma. It's the apocrine cells, you can see. Dispersed chromatin, open chromatin, you can see, with a pycnotic nucleus. This is secretory breast carcinomas. A lot of secretions you can see within the ductules. You can see a lot of secretion, pinkish secretions. You can see these all the secretions. The secretory breast carcinoma. This is angiosarcoma. You see how engorged is the breast tissue, and highly hyperemic, engorged, painful condition, and you can see areas of large petechiae. Ecchymosis, actually you can see areas of ecchymosis with erythema, focal ulceration also you can see. And this is how it will look. It's a highly pleomorphic. It looks so pleomorphic. Sarcoma, like so malignant it looks. The cells are for different sizes and shapes. Some are round. This is a mitotic activity. Some are round. Some are elongated. Some are like spindle shaped. You have various shapes, and in between you can see the blood vessels. You can see RBCs. So angiosarcoma is a typical picture of angiosarcoma. Yes, micropapillary. You can say micro, small papillae. This one sheet is again forming a tree-like thing, papillae. Inflammatory carcinomas. You can see the whole of the breast tissue is engorged, and you can see hyperemic. It's very painful. It's very warm. It looks as though it's like a mastitis, but it's a criteria for this diagnosis. First of all, the rapid onset of erythema, along with edema and beauty orange appearance, or abnormal breast warmth without a palpable mass. Second, symptom present more than 6 months, and the erythema covers at least 1/3 of the breast. It is 1/3 of the breast. This is the criteria for diagnosis of inflammatory breast carcinoma. You can see the stroma here is edematous, and you can see that there are pleomorphic cells with high NC ratio. Okay. You can see this typical plasmacytoid type of cell of different shapes and sizes, and some mitotic activities. This is a medullary carcinoma, very important. This one, you can see increase in amount of plasma lymphocytic cells within around the tumor cells. These are the tumor cells you can see, and surrounded by many lymphocytes and plasma cells. This is a plasma cell, it's a plasma cell, it's a plasma cell, and plasma cell, plasma. It's a lymphocytes. Its lymphoplasmacytic infiltration will be in and around the tumor cells. This is a medullary breast carcinoma. Again, some medullary breast carcinoma. You can see the tumor cells here surrounded by many lymphocytes and plasma cells. Nottingham modification of Bloom-Richardson grading and scoring. So this is basically we do to grade and score the breast carcinoma into a well-differentiated, moderate, or a highly differentiated, poorly differentiated tumors. But this is based on the three major entities. That is the percentage of tumor formation. That if it is more than 75%, it is graded as 1. If it is 10 to 75% of the tumor formation, it is graded as 2. And if it is less than 10, then it is graded as 3. Next, on the nuclear pleomorphism, that is, if it is uniform cells, it is 1. Moderately increase in the cell size is 2. And marked variation of between the cells, if you see, it is graded as 3. And based on the mitotic activity per high power field, 10 high power fields, up to 6 mitosis, if it is there, but 10 high power field, it's 1. 7 to 13 mitotic figures, graded as 2, and more than 14, it is graded as 3. Now we calculate the percentage of tubules at the grades, the nuclear pleomorphism, and the mitotic activity. And based on that, we will give a score. If the score is between 3 to 5, if the score is grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. If in the grade 1, if the score is 3 to 5, then it is well differentiated. The 5-year survival is 95% and 7 years is 90%. Grade 2 or score is, that is 6 to 7. Moderate, it is 75 is 5-year survival and 65% 7-year survival. Grade 3 or score is 8 to 9. It is the differentiation is severely or a poorly differentiated tumor. 5-year survival is 50% and 7-year survival is 45%. How does the tumor spread? The tumor spreads either by local spread or through the lymphatics or either by the blood. That is tumor spread, the local spread. The local spread of the tumor may cause direct ulceration, fungation, or bleeding they can be a foul blood smelling. Lymphatic spreads, lymphatic spread of the tumor is very important because we have a lot of lymph nodes in the breast. We have some mammillary lymph nodes, we have the supraclavicular lymph nodes, subclavicular lymph nodes, we have the axillary lymph nodes. Axillary lymph nodes are again divided into central group, apical group, lateral group, medial groups. They all are involved in the breast carcinoma. Then we have the pectoral muscles, we have the pectoral lymph nodes. So these are very important because lymphatic spread. Because through the lymphatics, it can lead to ascites, Gutenberg tumors, and secondaries in the liver. Next is the hematogenous spread. Thus, they can directly involve the flat bones. They're very common. It can lead to the brain and cause headache, vomiting, and blurring of vision. And malignant pleural effusion infiltrates the lung. It can lead to immediate death. The axillary lymph nodes. The axillary lymph nodes are divided into 3 categories. That is level 1 axillary lymph nodes, level 2 axillary lymph nodes, level 2 axillary lymph nodes. Level 1 axillary lymph nodes, the lymph nodes here, they lie along the axillary vein and the axillary artery and the lateral aspect of the pectoralis minor. Level 2, that is the mid-axillary lymph nodes, they also lie along the axillary vein and the axillary artery in the medial aspect of the pectoralis minor. Whereas the level 3, that is the high axilla area, it lies within the pectoralis, touching towards the coracoid plexus. Now, as per the breast, overall, if we divide the breast into 4 quadrants, that is the upper outer quadrant, there's the upper inner quadrant, the lower outer quadrant, and the lower inner quadrant. then most of the breast carcinomas, they occur in 25%, that is most, that is 25% of the breast carcinoma occurs in the upper outer quadrant. 1% of the breast tumors involve the axillary tail. That's why when modified mastectomy is done, even the axillary lymph nodes are all removed to see whether there are any deposits are there in the axillary tail or not also. And along with the axillary lymph nodes are all resected off. Next comes the 8%. The 8% are the upper inner quadrant of the breast. Around 5% are the lower outer and 4% the lower inner quadrant of the breast. And 1% of the tumors involve the nipple areola area. A central portion of the breast in the 4% of cases. So what are the investigations you should do for breast carcinomas? The most common investigation which you undergo, they are the first is the mammography, ultrasound of the breast, MRI of the breast, FNAC, fine needle aspiration cytology, and biopsy, and other investigation like the FISH for karyotyping and everything we should do, RT-PCR. When we go for the mammography or imaging or the ultrasound, the radiologists, they give BIRADS. It's called BIRADS means BIRADS. That is breast imaging reporting and data system for the final assessment categories between. So they have categorized from category 0 to category 6. So category 0, if somebody gives the BIRADS 0, it means the person needs an additional imaging or a prior examination. BIRADS 1 it means it's negative and it's a routine screening. The patient can go for the routine and there is no likelihood for any cancer. BIRADS 2 is a benign condition. Again, the patient has to undergo routine screening every 6 months, and likelihood of a cancer is 0%. BIRADS 3 is a probable, it's a benign. So again, a short interval of 6 months, it will be enough, and likelihood of tumor is less than, tumor forming less than 2%. BIRADS 4 is suspicious, and here for further confirmation, tissue biopsy, like a crooked biopsy, has to be done. This number 4, BIRADS 4, again divided into three subtypes, that is 4A, 4B, and 4C. 4A is a low suspicious for malignancy, 4B is a moderate suspicious for malignancy, and 4C is a highly suspicious for malignancy. BIRADS 5 is a highly suggestive of malignancy, and tissue biopsy has to be done for confirmation. And about 95% of the chances are there that it will turn out into a cancer. BIRADS 6 is already, it's a proven cancer. It has not been diagnosed it has already been proven that it is a cancer, and just we are doing it again to confirm it. And here the surgical excision is the clinical procedure. There are various tumor markers which are used for the confirmation of the breast tumors. One is the serum tumor markers we do. Then IHC, that is immunohistochemistry for ductal cells, immunohistochemistry for the myoepithelial cells. Then flow cytometry can be done, and FISH, that is fluorescent in situ hybridization, can be done. The serum tumor markers are the CA-15-3, CA-27-29, CEA, BRCA, PS2, parathyroid hormone receptor proteins, mammaglobulins, and cross-cystic disease protein fluid 15, that is TCD-FA15, can be done. Immunohistochemistry for ductal cells, they are ER, that is estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors, HER2 receptors, P53, galactin-3, cathepsin D, stress response protein 27 or SRP27, milk fat globule membrane antigen, lactalbumin, CK5, CK7, NYBR1, that is highly differentiated breast carcinoma. Immunohistochemistry for myeloepithelial cells are the P63, S100, alpha smooth muscle actin, and GFAP, glial fibrillary acidic proteins. Recent advances, if you go for, we take MammaPrint score or the Oncotype DX or the Prosigna kit. Why it is important? It is important because the molecular testing of the breast cancers have a high risk for relapse, and or whether the patient has been benefited with the adjuvant therapy or not in case of the node negative tumor, hormone positive tumors. So we have to do this type of test. That is accessory tests we can do. So what is MammaPrint score? It has been approved by the FDA, and here a fresh frozen tissue has to be taken. Around top 50 genes that regulate the cell cycle, invasion, metastasis, and angiogenesis are overall evaluated. The tumors are here classified as a high-risk tumor or a low-risk tumor. For this, we use a microarray plate. This is a microarray plate, and it has various holes. In this small container holes, we will keep the fresh frozen tissue samples, and we will insert this with an antigen. We will insert this into a microarray hybridization station. This is the machine, and we'll incubate it. And based on that, it will give the results. Next is the Oncotype diagnosis assay. It is a RT-PCR based assay and can perform only on formalin-fixed specimens. It analyzes up to 21 genes that include the oncogenes and the housekeeping genes. The assay computes a recurrence score for 0 to 100, which are categorized as low risk, intermediate risk, and high risk. Low risk is if it is less than 18, intermediate is 18 to 30, and high risk if it is more than 31. It also predicts the risk of reoccurrence after 10 years of the surgery. So what you should do? What is the protocol of this? The protocol is, first, surgically the tumor has to be removed, and the doctor has to pre-order the Oncotype DX diagnostics test. The hospital has to send a sample of the tumor to the Genomic Health Laboratories. The Genomic Health Laboratory will analyze the 21 genes here, and the doctor will receive a recurrence score result. And after the result is with the doctor, that he has to discuss it with the patient regarding his treatment. This is the kit set, and these are the antigens and the antibodies which are used here, and we will get the score. Now the recurrence score is a result. For example, the patient, on the date the patient sample was taken, next the gender, whether it's a male or a female, the report number, under which number he has been registered, and the date of the report. Like it was been taken on 1st Jan, on the 14th Jan, for example, I'm giving, it has been given the date. The report is released, and which doctor has ordered, and which doctor has done, and who has ordered this test, and recurrence score. Like now the 32. 32 means it's a high grade. It's a high grade. So what is the chances of recurrence after 9 years? That is here given, like 20% chances are there that after 9 years of this tumor operation also, and after he undergoes all the therapy also, there are chances that the tumor can reoccur. And what will the absolute average chemotherapy benefit? Benefit will be around 15%. More than 50% will be benefited by the treatment. This is how we will discuss with the patient. This is the Oncotype diagnosis breast recurrence score. Next comes the Prosigna kit. It uses a formalin fixed paraffin embedded tissue, and it checks for the mRNA expression of 50 genes used in the PAM50 molecular classification algorithm and 5 housekeeping genes. It calculates the recurrence risk a probability of the distant metastasis. This is a prognostic, and these are the antigens and the antibodies which are used here. And this is a machine under which the test is taken, and this is how the report is given.